Hey, what's going on? And we're live. What's going on, everyone? You're tuned in to ADSR. My name is Stranjah. I'm a drum and bass producer, and I'm the guest host today for their live stream. And we're going to be doing and bass sound design. So hit me up on the chat and let me know what you guys want me to do today. I had a few requests on my personal YouTube channel. You can find that. Just look up Stranjah, Stranjah. But we got some requests for break processing, doing some Reese's. There's some requests for side chaining, dark rollers. So lots of stuff. Some old school drum and bass design, washing windows by DJ Die, I see. So lots of cool stuff, and I'll try to cover as much as I can today. Pretty much, it's kind of a free for all. I'm just gonna start a beat, and then we'll try to cover as many topics as we can. So let me know where you guys are tuning in from. So I'll just start up Ableton here, and I just have a beat here already. It's a little break beat I have in here, and yeah, I'm just gonna apply some EQing on this break. Just a little beat so we can start jamming along and making some sounds. Maybe I'll add some single hits to this drum loop as well. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, maybe make it nice and tight. Get some modern sounding one shots here. Look for a snare. I hear some requests for some deep liquid. That's a good request. Maybe we'll see how this goes. You know, that's a nice sounding snare. So shouts out to Denver tuning in, New York, France, Ukraine. Nice. We have lots of people all over the world tuned in today. I'm just going to go into my sample packs. Let's look for a nice Lensmit kit. Has some nice snares. Cool. I'll just put a simple kick pattern, two-step kick pattern here. A kick onto one and a kick on the half beat of two. And then, all right. Okay, so I'll just bring the audio up a bit. Let me know if it's better now. I just have to start it a bit quiet right now because as I add more layers, it might clip. So I started the levels a bit lower, but I'll bring it up for now so you can hear what I'm doing. Shouts out to Conray tuning in from South Africa. Shouts out to Jack from the UK. All right, so this is sounding good. And I found some nice hi-hats recently from a pack on Splice. Let's see where it was. Yeah, Matt Zoe. He made a really good pack recently. I encourage you guys to check that one out. And there's some really nice hi-hats in there. All right, I like my hi-hats nice and tight. Like that. Just get a couple in there just to get a little sequence going in. And then I have this little break beat. Let's see what happens when we bring this break beat in. Okay, so I'll tighten up the break beat. So the goal with the way I layer drums is that I try to make it sound cohesive. So I have a break beat here and I have single hits here. And the way I do it is I like to cleverly EQ the break beat and use some dynamics processing to tuck it underneath the main kick and snare. So let's see what we can do here. So I'll just single out the break for now. Let me just pull out my oscilloscope. It's always nice to have something visual while we work on something. So let's let me know what is your favorite oscilloscope. So mine is this one, the SM Exoscope, and it's for free. And they recently just made a 64-bit version, so it's amazing now. We can run it if you're on the 64-bit version of Ableton. I'm curious what you guys are using for your oscilloscope. I find it's helpful to have a visual cue like this when you're working in sound design. Oh, let me just pull that. So I'll probably take out some of those, the low ends and probably the mids. And really, I'm trying to keep the groove of the breakbeat, and then, right, and now I have a pretty groovy, modern sounding break here. Right. And then we can add little percussive layers to make it sound groovier, right? So a quick way is there's nothing wrong with using loops, right? I love using tambourine loops, for example. Sometimes people complain that everything you should make everything from scratch, but these loops are here for they're tools, right? And they're creative tools to help us create. So you shouldn't feel ashamed of using loops, especially if you can switch it up and cut it up. But sometimes just adding a straight loop can spice up your groove. So I have this tam loop, but it has to be played in double time. So just hit the 2 here, or this. There we go. And we could try pitching it up. I'll just use Complex Pro as the algorithm to pitch. Yeah, that sounded nice. Hello, Kafa from France. Thanks for tuning in. Shouts out to Conroy. I'm glad you're feeling the drums. Shouts out to Fox from Detroit. Keith from England. Brandon from Minneapolis. Lots of people tuned in. Amazing. Shouts out to Steve from ADSR. And thanks again for having me on this great platform. I think I'm gonna shape the snare a little bit. I want it to sound a little sharper. And a quick way you can do that is just use this sample endpoint, and you can shorten the sample, right? And you can add a fade. Now I'm gonna go into my breakbeat. And another option is you can use side chaining. So there's some question about side chaining. And in terms of processing, this is another neat way to disguise your break underneath your main kicks and snares, as I use sidechain compression. And what you can do is you can group your kick and snare together as one channel. So I'll call this kick and snare, right? And then under my breakbeat here, I'm going to turn on my sidechain over here, and then I'll choose my sidechain source as my kick and snare, so that every time the kick and snare plays, it'll trigger the compressor, and it'll tuck the signal from the break, right? So let me just So notice I bring my threshold down so enough so that it catches the kick and snares, and then adjust the ratio accordingly. Sometimes I do go extreme and just bring it all the way up and just tuck that signal down. Even around 4 to 8 is good for a ratio. Maybe I'll dial it a bit. Having some of that character from the snare is nice. I just want to tame it so it doesn't, so we get a more cohesive break here. Kafa loves the hi-hat. Glad you're liking that hi-hat. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. I mean, the way I work is that you can sculpt it through the project, but for now it's good enough, right? So as you layer more sounds, you might discover that you may need to then do some further adjustments in the EQ or levels, but this is good enough to build with. And I'll just save this project so I don't lose it. ADSR EP0 Stranjah EP01. And I'm feeling some bass. Once I have those drums, I'm just hungry for bass. I'm a bass head, so. But sometimes I start with musical elements such as pads, but I'm just hungry for some bass. It's the morning. Had a bit of breakfast, but I'm still hungry, so I need that bass. Thinking of trying using pigments. I'm loving the sound of pigments recently. It's a very round sounding synth. But let me know what synth you guys want me to use. I could easily switch over, but I'll just start with this, and if I'll see what you guys are saying. I could always make two bass sounds, and we can switch between the two, right? So Garth, thanks for the recommendation on Camel Crusher. I do know that's a sick plugin. I don't have it today, unfortunately, but there are others that I use. I mean, I can group this. And one that I've been loving using to add some saturation to my drums is Arteria's reverb plate. Funny enough, it's a reverb plugin. However, they have this section here, which is a drive section, and it sounds very analog. So it's a tube emulation. And what I do is I just bring the dry wet all the way down. So all I'm getting is the dry signal, but you still get the drive from this effect. Right. So it's a nice plugin to warm up your drums. I'll call this my drum bus. And then I'll pull out pigments again. Okay, so I'm seeing requests for serum, some pigments, some face plant. I have all three of those, so I'll stick with pigments for the first sound. However, we'll dig into some serum and some face plant as well. I'm new to face plant. I just got it, but I do know how to use it. So the beautiful thing about this plugin, it has two sound engines, right? And if you under the engine, there's different types, right? So there's a sample type, where you can use actual samples and do kind of granular synthesis, which is still something I need to dig into. I don't really know much about granular synthesis yet, and I've been meaning to grasp it, perhaps in a future episode, but my expertise is more wavetable analog synthesis as well as FM synthesis. So, but under the analog synthesis, look, you get 3 oscillators, right? You also get a noise oscillator here as well. So within one engine. So imagine this, if you enable both engines and you're using analog for both, you have 6 oscillators here, which is crazy. I've yet to maximize on all the oscillators. For me, usually just a few is enough, but I can only imagine the results by using all the oscillators. Right, so I'm gonna use, so here, this is my modulation for FM synthesis. So right now, currently, this oscillator can be modulated by FM here, and you can increase the amount here on this window here. Next time I do this, I'm gonna get a zoom plugin so I can zoom in on the sections. I just heard that there's a plugin that can zoom in on the window. That might help for those of you viewing on their phones. But hopefully you can see what I'm doing. But I'm just raising the FM amount here, and it's using oscillator 3 here as its modulator. So that means I could increase the tune of the carrier here. I mean the modulator. So yeah, you can do it that way. And then you can modulate the amount here. Let me try going into, yeah, I'll use the LFO. So now it's modulating the amount of the FM. Just bring the pitch down a bit. So he's getting some weird, I guess, clipping on this one. I think, oh, maybe it's from this guy. There we go. Sometimes I find that the FM on the wavetable position, for some reason, sounds a bit smoother. Let me try doing it here. Yeah, for some reason it's smoother on this section. The way the wavetable, so this is the wavetable engine, and you can choose, well, there's the 2D, 3D view. If you guys are familiar with Serum, it's a similar format where you can switch between waveforms, and they have tons of different waveforms. Right. But for FM synthesis, I just like using a sine wave. Oh. And then I'll go back into my LFO, and it sounds like popping bubble wrap. Yeah, it did sound like popping bubble wrap, but it wasn't a nice kind of sound, so I wanted to get out of that. So you can do wobbles with FM. So the modulator for FM is here. It's a dedicated oscillator here. So you can do that and then add some distortion. Here's the FX bus here. One thing I've been liking doing is modulating the drive using the same LFO. And sometimes you could add a filter to that too. So modulate the filter. I'm gonna just put a couple notes in so we can just listen to it, get a groove in. Boom. I'm thinking of, instead of using the LFO, I'm just gonna use one of these functions here. Sometimes I'll dance around until I find the sound that I want. It's all about experimentation when you're doing sound design. So this function is kind of like the LFO in Serum. It can function as an envelope. So I got envelope mode here. And then this modulation matrix, at first, it can be confusing because it's very different from other synths. So the way it works is you select, for example, your source of your modulation, which would be function 1. And then when you're in this panel, then every parameter, if you hover over the ring, you can see that there's a color, meaning you can click and drag to increase the modulation amount on that parameter. And okay, so this function is now modulating FM amount. Now I'm going to also set it to the cutoff. That sounded much more like what I want to do. And then let's go into the distortion section and perhaps whoa, 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 whoa. Another cool thing I like to do is I like the effects on Serum. So you can pull Serum's effects unit as an effects. Right. Now, I think we can bring this. Ah, that's what I want. Yeah. then you can shape the envelope depending on how you want that little bass to sound, right? So this would be the attack. So you can perhaps add some LFO to it as well on the filter, perhaps. Let's try maybe a triplet rhythm. That's kind of cool, switching between the eighth note triplet and quarter note. I wonder if we can program that into the performance. So let's see if I can. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I can then go into my just show and modulation, and then I can change it here. Except I think change it to eighth person. Yeah, okay, and then go in here, and then you can modulate it. That's cool. Let's see if we can increase the distortion. So I want to use the LFO here to modulate this distortion amount, but with the serum effects, you have to, it doesn't pick up the MIDI notes, so it doesn't trigger the LFO, so you have to insert an external instrument. Now, hopefully I remember how to do this, because I only recently learned how to do this. I think you do this and MIDI to pigments, I think? Yeah, okay, cool, and then I'll just put a note here. Make it 2 bars. Then I'll make this 2 bars as well. Yeah, so I want it to go up like that on the first bar. Whoa. Let's add some reverb. I'm loving the sound of adding I know adding reverb to bass is a no-no, and there's ways around it. You can split your bass sound into layers between mid, high, low layers, and then only reverb the top layers. Sometimes I admit I am lazy, and I'll just do it this way, and then I'll just high pass it. Hope that works and gets rid of the low end. Yeah, okay, that's a cool groove. Let me just save that. Yeah, let's make another bass sound. Let's see, what should we do? Serum. Yeah, rev intensity is an amazing reverb. It is my favorite reverb unit. It used to be Valhalla Vintage Reverb. I still use Valhalla for certain applications, but I recently just got this, and Is something about it. I did a video about this, and something about this just sounds very musical. There's a really sweet tone to this reverb, and it you can really use it as a musical instrument. So, yeah, I'll do some. I'll try to fit in some serum and some faceplant. Just want to check in with the chat room and see what everybody else is saying. Some requests for some old school sound. Yeah, rev intensity. It's a cool effect. All right. Cool. Make more in arteria, but a respace. You want to okay, so I'm seeing some requests for some respaces. Shouts out to Taylor from Toronto. This is my hometown, so I'm from Toronto, Canada, and it's supposed to be a beautiful day in Toronto today. I think it said it was 16 degrees, so amazing day. I might go for a bike ride after I get lunch today. Yeah, you're welcome, Taylor. Cool. More requests for serum. Cool. Any tips for making heavy, dark text that sort of layers from Danny? So that's an interesting question because are you referring to like 1997 text step, or are you talking about like modern tech like Enai and Mephius? Got to make that distinction because very very different sounds. Sure. Let me just make a quick reese in serum first, and then we can go back. It's easy to start a reese. Just make sure you have a sawtooth, and then increase the unison to anywhere from 3 and up will get you that sound. The more, the fatter the reese. What kind of reese do you guys want to hear? Like a dirty sounding reese, or like more low, like I guess low frequencies, filtered kind of reese. I heard requests for dirty reese. We'll try our best. With dirty kind of reasons, I just experiment and see where it takes me. Maybe we'll add some FM modulation into this reese. Let's see what happens. Rumbling and dirty. A reese that runs away and jumps out behind the door. So, are we trying to scare everyone and get them to leave? Let me see if I can warm the sound up with rev plate. Whoa. Add some reverb to it. Bring that decay down. You don't want it to stretch too long. How does this sound for a reese? Is it good enough? What does it need? Wow, it's kind of too early in Toronto for like an evil reese, but if you guys want it. That means we need an amen. If you want something like that, we gotta bring like a hard beat. Let's see. What do I got for amens? That's good advice. Party with Gunther to tame those highs. Otherwise, it gets unruly. It is true. Boost the mids and chops on the tops. Sure. Okay. So I'm gonna go back. This is what I like about live streams. It's collaborative. So I'm taking your input and then outputting. So the multi-band compressor. So someone says OTT. The multi-band compressor on Serum is the same thing. You can tame the different bands. Check in with the chat. Okay, there's a couple people that have nodded to an amen, so. And then what I like to do is then just group the entire Reese, and you could I could EQ it. Yeah, sure. I'm gonna EQ. And then I could add an additional plugin for the bottom, and you could have a clear sine tone. Oh, over here. We'll just see. Maybe sometimes it sounds good. Sometimes you want that randomness of having a bunch of low, I guess, frequency oscillators doing the bass, and sometimes you want that clear sounding bass. So how does that sound? Do you guys like that just a single tone bottom end over the Reese? Let's make this a 2-bar sequence. Oh. Yeah, we gotta get some amens in here. But I just want to get this sequence in first, and then nice. We have 69 people tuned in on YouTube. I'm not sure how many are on Twitch right now, but that's amazing. And if you haven't said hello yet, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I'll mute the solid sine then. Someone said that they like the phasing of the Reese. It's more in sync as opposed to that sine, which it goes doesn't match. So sometimes you can even just take the top end of the Reese and then have more like an 808 rhythm under the Reese, and that's fun too. I'm thinking of where is it? Yeah, I want this one. Slice to new MIDI track. Sup, Brendan from Florida, Martin from Germany, Sunny from Brazil, Pega Kappa from France, more UK crew, Atlanta. Wow, lots of people all over. That's amazing. Let me get an 808 in here. And this is tuned in the key of G, so I'll just move the root note here. For some reason this is not playing. Let me try that again. I've been noticing this recently. My sampler has been acting up. It doesn't play when I'm triggering it. Is it the volume? Nope. Interesting. I'll just make my own 808. 808s are easy to make. It's all it is some pitch modulation with a sine wave. We'll set that envelope too. So yeah, sometimes I like to just take out the bass from the Reese. This is like old school, say like 1999 to 2001 style. Forgot what key I'm on. A, okay. you could follow the notes of the Reese, or you can play like the fifth note. So you can have like the Reese is kind of playing a harmony on top of the sub. Sure they're all playing the same volume. Switch between amens. I like doing that with jungle. Let's see what other amens I have. Amen break is a popular breakbeat used from a soul funk record. I know that there's some new people here to drum and bass, but jungle, which is pre-drum and bass, used the amen break a lot. And again, it's from a soul and funk record by the Winstons called Amen Brother. And it was first used in hip hop, and then jungle just took the break and murdered it. Yeah, there's some amens here. I'll go with that one. This one sounds like the Waterhouse dub break. If anyone knows Waterhouse dub by Digital, shouts out to Digital. So yeah, let's see. Make this a 4-bar. And then make this also 4 bars and start at 2 bars after. And let's see. Yeah, let me just add some EQing to this amen as well. Let me just move this on a new scene. I'll call this, call this jungle. Then I have this, what do I have here? So we have like 2 tunes here. I'll call this Jump Up. Take these guys out. bass. Oh. Technically, I can figure out a way to like crossfade between the two, and then you can mix between the two tunes, but I think that's a little too complicated for today. So we have a jump up tune here and a jungle tune. Shouts out. Let me know which one do you guys prefer, jump up or jungle? Question about where do I go from here? I would add more elements. So right now we have the drums and the bass, and that's a strong, I guess, a loop. And number one in terms of making dance-oriented music is you want to build a strong groove, something that you could vibe to. So both of these ideas have a nice groove, and sometimes we're just stuck there. We have a nice groove, and what do you do with it, right? And so a strategy I like to use is once you have that groove, the bass and drums, then get more musical elements into it, right? Look for example, vocal snippets, samples, add musical bits here and there. You like to use pads or stabs. It's about adding more layers. One I guess advice that I heard from Blue Martin that I agree with fully is that you keep adding on layers. Just keep adding. Don't worry about if you're adding too much. Just add until you can't think of any ideas, and then you have a bunch of layers to play with. And then you strip it down to the ones that make the most sense for your tune. I'm not saying use all the layers. You're just looking for different ideas that can work together. And once you have a couple, then for example, you might have a pad, a vocal snippet, and a stab, right? And then it's easy to then arrange your song and lay it out. And little quick plug to my own channel. So you can look for it on YouTube. Just search Stranjah. I have a new video coming out today speaking about that, particularly about arranging a song. And it's important to have those musical elements ready before you move on to the arrangement stage. So check out my channel today if you want to learn about arrangement. And shouts out again to everyone at ADSR. It's thank you so much for having me, and it's an awesome platform, and really happy to virtually meet everyone on this platform, and thanks for tuning in. So yeah, I mean, elements that I could add, I could look for vocals, for example. I'm not sure if I can find a good one like on the spot. Sometimes it takes time, but I'll just go through some of my vocal samples and see what we can find. Right?
Under me sensei, me under me sensei. I wanna don't. All me have to do is send for the new gun. Kill them. Full up of stamina. Them afraid make culture. No more, don't. I just wanna know.
That's a cool old school sounding. I mean, hopefully my sampler works now. Probably won't. I gotta figure it out after the show, but it's been doing weird things. Oh, it works for this one. I just wanna know. And just put a bunch of delay on it. My favorite thing to do with vocals, especially for jungle. I just wanna know. I just wanna know. kind of works, kind of, but not really. Let's see what else I have.
Ting drinking is very bad. Yo, I got a fake ID though.
Every object have a shadow.
I don't know when people hear.
Here, I'll do something easier. I'll look for some pad sounds, and Massive has some good pad sounds. That's true. That kick is I actually didn't mean for these drums to play over the amen. It did sound alright. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the kick is really needed over the amen. Sometimes I do layer a kick. I mean, it's just, if I lower it, then yeah, I guess I can bring down the kick. Yeah. But the snare is not needed, so I'm gonna mute it here. But like I was saying, you can add pads, right? I guess the last thing I'll show you guys is designing a pad sound from scratch. So I'm more comfortable doing it in Serum, so I'll just do that there. So this, I'm gonna shout out my homie 0=0, Jason C. He's the one that taught me how to make. He was the one that taught me a lot about synthesis. So I owe it to him. And in terms of pads, a good way to create pad sounds is using a sawtooth and then increasing the unison. I'll just put in a long one-note chord there. If you want to make like I know there's some requests for old school sounding pads, especially like good looking stuff. Yeah, I mean, you could program like this is called the 7th chord. This is the 9th. These kind of chords are nice and jungly sounding. It's all about adding movement to your pad, right? Adding some envelopes to shape that pad, and then you could so that LFO slowly is growing and filtering that cutoff. Meanwhile, that cutoff is being modulated by the LFO, right? And then I gotta find a way to then modulate the speed of the rate of the LFO. So I wanted to go fast, slow, like that. So I'm gonna use LFO2 as an envelope, make it maybe 2 bars, and then I'll get it to modulate LFO1, the rate of LFO. LFO2, I think that. I forgot how you do this. If someone knows, let me know. But essentially, I want to. Yeah, there it is. LFO rate. LFO rate, no, LFO 1 rate. So yeah, so this LFO is then modulating this. So because it's starting up here and then going down, so it's saying modulate the rate and start fast to slow. So fast to slow. Maybe we can add some saturation to that. Yeah, good looking records. Definitely iconic record label. Shouts out to LDJ Bookham. Defined the sound of that atmospheric drum and bass. Maybe we can make a simple 2-chord progression. Maybe, so let me zoom out of this. So make it like that. And it's good to add some effects to make it sound bigger. Well, go to our favorite reverb right now. So we're an hour and about an hour 15 into our stream. I think I'm going to end it at the 90-minute mark. So this will probably be the last sound that we create today. Just so you guys know. How does that sound to you guys? How does this pad sound? Sometimes you can add another oscillator to give it another layer of texture or character, right? I'm just gonna randomly choose an oscillator. So then I'll probably send that to the filter as well. Let's just hear how it sounds with the break. Whoa. Maybe we can do a quick arrangement here. So I'll just copy this guy into the arrangement view. Oh. Just stretch out like that. And then, oh, I did something wrong. And the pad. yeah, so that's a cool jungle sequence. So we got some nice pads here, and so yeah, we got a nice sequence there and some jungle. We started with some drum and bass, and then based on your requests, I think we just went with it. So any questions, any I guess final questions you wanted me to touch on before I guess we end today's show? We got about, I think, 10, 12 minutes left. In terms of the second drop, especially for jungle like this, I mean, the lazy way would be to just have the same thing on the second drop, but I mean, and sometimes that's a valid way to arrange a song. Um, However, you could add subtle changes on the second drop, add like an extra sound, extra like effect sound. However, I like to approach it with subtle changes. I might like um, add an extra note on like the 808 bass or the Reese, or I might introduce another break on the second drop. Um, my goal when I arrange a track is it kind of tells a story. So you're going from A to B. So from I guess the first drop and second drop, I like to have like very subtle changes on the second drop. I do admit sometimes I do just do the repeat of the first drop. Sometimes it makes sense, and it depends on the type of track you're making, where you want to have like a cohesive theme. So you may want to keep the drops the same. It's still good to have like certain like atmospheric sounds, which are subtle. You can then use that to change it up between the first and second drop. So those are strategies that I employ when I arrange my song. Any other questions? Have I performed in UK? I have a couple times. Last time was a while, about 5, 6 years ago. I would like to come back to the UK and perform. Hopefully, end of this. I mean, let's see how this whole lockdown pans out, right? But but I'd like to perform again. Hopefully, we can next year. It's kind of tough right now to see. I mean, in terms of how things are going, but I do want to head back to UK. I'm even thinking of doing some workshops when I'm over. So definitely hit me up if you want to connect with me when I'm over out in the UK and Europe. Um, any other questions? Let me just play. Let me play the jump up section again. My YouTube channel, just search for Stranjah, Stranjah. It should pop up when you search YouTube it. Shouts out to Psychoactive DMB. Thanks. I'm glad the tutorials have been helping out. Some people are saying drop would be good before the pad. I'm not sure what you guys mean, but I guess I think what you guys are talking about is just, I don't know, maybe introduce the Reese before so yeah, I mean, that's a technique I like to use sometimes. After the intro, you could filter in the Reese, right? I guess we'll end off with doing this last thing. We'll arrange this little Reese here. So what I like to do is, wait, where is my Reese? Yeah, okay, let me just pull in an EQ here. You could filter in the Reese, right? So, let me just add some reverb onto this riser. And I'll just play the last 4 bars here. So how does that sound as a drop? So we introduce the pads, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a cool option to arrange it. Arranging songs, there's tons of ways you can arrange it. So this is one way. Yeah. So I just want to check and see if there's any other questions. Yeah, I think people are liking the sound, nice and dark. And yeah, this does remind me of an old Ray Keith song. Maybe subconsciously I'm thinking about that. I forgot the name of the song. If you guys know the song that you guys were referring to, let me know, because I'm curious what track this reminds us of as well. So Ray Keith, Jungle, drum and bass originator. So shouts out to him. He did use, I'm using the Trayman break, which is popular during early 2000s drum and bass. Yeah, so I guess if there aren't any more questions, this will be the end of today's stream. So once again, my name is Stranjah, and I make I make all types of music. My work predominantly has been known for drum and bass and jungle, but On the side, I also do like hip hop and experiment with pop music. It's something I enjoy aside from bass music. I also run a label called Deviant Audio, so you guys can check that out. We promote forward-thinking bass music, whether it's drum and bass, jungle, or halftime, hybrid, left field bass, all types of fun, funky stuff. And yeah, just want to say thanks again to everyone that tuned in today. We had a lot of people tuned in from all over the world, and that's amazing to see. It's great to that we can have this community where we can all connect for a common interest, and it's cool to almost like collaborate live with you guys here. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys got something out of it. And shouts out again to Steve and Daweed at ADSR. Thanks again for having me on your platform. I had an amazing time and hope we can do this again soon. And follow me on all your favorite social media to stay in touch. I love DMing and connecting with you all, so hit me up. And yes, with that said, I hope you guys all have a good day and stay healthy and stay safe. So thanks again for everyone. And this is Stranjah on ADSR, and peace out.